Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with me, Christian Harris. Today, we're speaking all about how to win hearts and minds to achieve safety success, a topic which I'm sure will resonate with you because it's a challenge that we in the safety profession have to overcome time and time and time again. The good news is, I've got a framework for you that I'm going to share in this session, which is all about how to get people to care about safety. And I've used this in a number of organizations. I've run workshops with businesses about this, and it really, really does work well. So grab a notepad and paper, listen to this one carefully, and learn all about how to win hearts and minds in safety. Cheers.
Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with Christian Harris. We believe that proactive safety and risk management powers business performance. Each week we explore this theme, sharing guests, stories, insights, trends, hints and tips. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, and video versions are available on YouTube. But for now, let's join the conversation with Christian.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Safety Roundtable session. We are going to be speaking about a topic that is, I'm sure, relevant to everyone that's joining us today. It's all about how to engage people in safety, winning hearts and minds, which I know is a bit of an expression that can be overused, but since it's a common one, it makes sense to entitle the session that, I think. So, if you've not been to one of these safety roundtable sessions before, they happen every fortnight, and each time there's a slightly different topic. So we've spoken about all sorts of things from safety culture to defending insurance claims and everything in between. I'm always here, but it's either me talking about a topic and engaging with you guys in a discussion, or sometimes I have a guest and we go through something and then open it up to an interactive session with everybody that's attending as well. If you're joining us on LinkedIn or YouTube, by the way, just drop your comments in the relevant box and I'll try my best to monitor those. But for the very best experience, head over to safetyroundtable.co.uk and join us on the Zoom. Right, so we're going to speak about winning hearts and minds, and we're going to talk about why we need to do that. Why is that an important thing for us to focus on? And why should we be kind of developing our skills and experiences in this area? And we're going to speak about how to do that. So I've got a framework that I've used over the years that I'm going to share with you in terms of how to get that message across to people that works well. We're also going to do a little interactive exercise where I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios based on the framework, and we will sort of open it up and see if we can figure out how we can solve that puzzle. And then, as always, really keen to hear what you've got to say about this topic. So if you want to join in at any point, if you're live on the Zoom, go to reactions, raise your hand, and I'll call you up to speak, whether it's a question, a comment, or whatever it might be. But very much hoping that this will be a nice interactive session. So let's just start with a bit of context. Has health and safety gone mad? So there's a great image that I use quite often on my LinkedIn, which is some people attacking a castle, and it's saying they've got a ladder saying "one attacker at a time, please." It is health and safety goneth mad. So why is it that we need to win hearts and minds? In other words, is it because health and safety's gone mad, and there's this kind of overwhelming sense that it's running rampant? Or is it perhaps that it's just too boring? Maybe we're just, what we deal with is just a bit boring. It's a bit dull, and people are never going to care about it. And maybe that's the challenge that we face. So just to start with, I'd be interested to know if you go to either in the chat or go to reactions, raise your hand. What's the biggest challenge in your experience, your opinion, to get people to care about safety? Is it that they don't see it as relevant? They just feel it's kind of compliance? Is it because they think it won't happen to them? Perhaps they've heard it all before. What is it in your experience, in your opinion, that we struggle with in terms of getting our messaging across to people who wouldn't sign up and join a safety roundtable webinar, such as everybody that's on here? We're all advocates for safety. We're all advocates for being proactive, for best practices, etc., etc. But what is it that we're missing? What is it we're getting wrong? What is the biggest challenge that you're having with getting other people, non-safety people, engaged? It's a bit of a quiet crowd today. I'm going to have to start picking on people. Ronnie, you've got your hand up. Well done. Go to unmute yourself and let me know.
I think for myself, you can have as many safety stand downs with the best intention as possible, but they eventually become the normal, and eventually the guys and girls on site have heard it all before, and they think, we're just complying. I think it's probably they've heard it all before and they feel it's just compliant. Definitely 2 and 4 on the screen there for myself. Trying to change everyone's perception is very difficult. You might have a young apprentice who'll listen versus the more experienced out there who may not feel, he's done 40 years in construction, it's never going to happen to him, so he may well switch off, or, he's
Yeah.
managed this far without it happening.
Yeah. And what are some of the strategies you've employed to try and overcome that?
We've tried to develop the safety culture, getting rid of a push out on a toolbox talk sent out in an email, and we now visit sites as a group and we pick something from the team. So we bring a team member in who's out on the park working physically and ask them, what is your hot topic this week? And then we develop a hot topic around their influence rather than me come out and say,
Like that.
We're going to work on temporary work today because it suits me or it suits the other hot topic. Take something from the team and pick their topic rather than go to them with the topic.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. There's some good stuff in the chat. Gareth has said relevance. I'll come back to that later. Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's always difficult, but yeah, mixing it up is definitely a good strategy. Thanks, Ronnie. Nick, you got your hand up. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think similar to what Ronnie's just stated, it's kind of making it relevant, making it sort of apparent to the works at that point in time. Trying to make it interactive, certainly from my experience in this, and certainly mixing and obviously working with numerous contractors. Yeah, we've heard it all before, and there's nothing you can teach me, son, because I've done this for years. But it's having that, I think, personal touch, and certainly it's something I've tried to develop myself with, try to be a little bit more interactive with going back to Ronnie's point, toolbox talks, taking it away from being a sheet of A4 paper that somebody's just blindly reading out to try and have a more interactive session.
Yeah.
And getting them actively involved in doing something at the tail end of it. And that's quite a significant sea change from what I see anywhere else. But it's trying to drive a more positive mindset, I suppose. But it is tough. It is really tough.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And we'll see if we can help with some ideas on how you can be even better and overcome some of those challenges. A few thoughts in the chat. Some dangers like dust and noise aren't seen and therefore not taken seriously. Senior management not being engaged. Mixture of they don't think it will happen to them and they've heard it all before. So kind of what you were saying just then. Health and safety is rammed down people's throats 24/7. It's becoming overwhelming for the guys and girls at the coalface. That's a really interesting perspective there. So we need to think about, are we, in a sense, maybe causing part of the problem by being too proactive at putting our messages out there. Very, very interesting thing to consider. So here's the point, I suppose, and I'm drawing here from my world of slip safety. On the screen, you can see the HSE RIDDOR data for the last sort of 11, 12 years, something like that. And what you can see is that slips, trips, and falls, more or less, year after year after year after year after year, is about 30% of riddles, 30% of non-fatal injuries reported under RIDDOR. Now, if we put a message out there and it doesn't feel relevant and it doesn't resonate with the audience that we're trying to connect with, they're just not going to care about it. And therefore, we're going to get bad outcomes. And I use this, therefore, as an illustration of, the challenges that I face in my business, which is trying to get people to take a second look at this or to be open-minded that perhaps they're not doing everything that they could be. Perhaps there is more that they can do. Because the challenge is, if it's a flat trend like this, and I talk about sort of, I call this the kind of safety crab trap, where you're kind of going sideways, but you're not improving. Well, it's flat, so I guess that means we can't do anything more about it. And therefore people switch off, and therefore it becomes this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. So, just taking this as one small, well, albeit it's the biggest cause, obviously, of accidents and serious accidents, as you can see from the data, but one example of a snapshot of something in safety. Here we're trying to put a message across. Is that message going to resonate? If it doesn't, people won't care, and therefore we're not going to achieve that change in behavior. So over the years, what I've sort of worked on and created, I guess, is this little model which I call CARE. So how do you make them care? And if you've joined me on any of these sessions before, you'll know I love mnemonics and acronyms and all this stuff. So CARE in this case has 4 key points. It's crafted. C is crafted. A is attention grabbing. R is relevant, and E is emotive. So how do we make them care about safety? How do we win their hearts and minds? We need to do these 4 things with the messages and the communications that we're putting out there. So let me run you through that, and then we're going to do a little exercise interactively to see if we can bring this to life a little bit. So crafted, what do I mean by crafted? What I mean is that often we see messages which are just very blunt, pretty stale, not very inviting, not particularly well thought through, pretty basic. In other words, have we really put enough care and attention into the message that we're trying to put out there, and the words, the images, all of that stuff, the colors, or are we just chucking stuff out there that isn't really our best work? So the point, I suppose, here is that if you want something to resonate, you need to spend the time on it to make it as good as possible, and therefore that bit of extra time can be the difference between a message landing, excuse me, and a message not landing. So that's crafted. Attention grabbing. Now, I'm quite a big fan of marketing. I like marketing because it's all about psychology and obviously, I'm trying to grow my business, and therefore getting attention is really important. In many ways, attention is almost the most valuable currency in the world right now, because we are constantly bombarded left, right, and center. I can't remember the data, but I'm sure it's in the hundreds, or maybe it's even the thousands nowadays of messages we see day after day. If you think about, newspaper headlines, social media stuff, TV, radio, billboards, signs, messages, calls, etc., etc., etc. So we're bombarded all the time with messages, um, and so we have this kind of we have a short attention span. So something's got to grab us quickly, um, but also for something to land, for something to resonate with us, it's got to sort of sift through all of the other stuff that we're being bombarded with for us to remember it. So we've got to be good at getting people's attention with the safety messages that we're putting out there. We're not going to, if we can't sort of pull on the heartstrings of attention, we're not going to win their mind because they're not going to invest the time in it, and we're not going to win their heart because they're just going to think it's a bit dull, a bit boring, not relevant to me, and move on. So it's really, really important that we figure out how we can get our messages to achieve that sort of 3 second bang. Yeah, I get this. I get that it's for me. So it's got to grab people's attention. Good ways of doing that. And you'll see, social media is a great way of exploring and learning how to do this. If you see stuff that is doing well on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, wherever you go, um, probably LinkedIn's a good place to think about this because it's more of a business platform. Um, how are people doing well? How are they doing well on the algorithm, which is effectively getting attention? Um, it's through storytelling, it's through strong visuals, and it could be through things like shocking facts as well. Um, one way of doing this is if you think about imagine you were going to London and you were walking down Oxford Street at sort of 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. So it would be absolutely teeming with people. Um, and your brain, your sort of limbic system, I suppose, is conditioned to blur all of those people out because you can't be studying every single person's face and thinking about every single person because you just you can't handle, you haven't got the capacity for that. So your brain is sort of designed to filter anything out unless it ticks one of a few boxes, and um, one of them is scary. This is about attention grabbing. One of them is sexy. Now, I don't know about making safety sexy, but it's just something to be aware of. Um, there's familiarity, or there's free. So if you're familiar with somebody, so like if you're walking down Oxford Street and you saw somebody who you went to school with and you recognize them, you would pull their face out of the crowd. So familiarity helps. If you saw somebody that you thought was really sexy, your attention would go there. If you saw something scary, your attention would go there, and potentially something for free would grab your attention as well. So those are a few things that we can use to our advantage to grab attention. Feel free, by the way, if you have got any comments on any of this, go to reactions, raise your hand. I can see the stuff going on in the chat. Next one is relevant. So if you think about everybody's favorite radio station, and this is a bit of a joke, but it's WIIFM FM. What's in it for me? FM. So what people really care about is what's in it for them. Yes, there is evidence that, think of the Alcoa example, safety is a cause that people can rally behind. Absolutely. But if people don't think that they're going to get some benefit from it, then in all honesty, they're just not going to care. They're not going to get involved. So we need to make our communication, our messaging, directly applicable to the audience that we're trying to get that message to. So whether it's their personal life or their work life, um, the best chance we've got of getting somebody engaged in safety is if they think that engaging in safety is going to lead to a positive outcome for them. And then lastly is emotive. So a couple of examples on screen here. One is they're both uh, safety posters. One says work safety, and it shows you the different types of PPE that you could wear. And the other one says the best gift you can give to your family is you get home safely. Now, one of those obviously is emotive. One of them is not at all emotive. And evidence shows us that messages that are more emotive are more likely to get through to people. So, to what extent can we figure out a way to pull on some heartstrings a little bit to engage people in some kind of emotion? It could be um, fear, it could be desire for something, it could be, um, I suppose, this one here is a mixture of kind of affection and also a bit of fear around, what if I don't do that? But if we can't sort of get people engaged on an emotional level, then we're going to struggle for the message to land. So the best messaging, the best communications that I see uh, when it comes to safety and getting that message across to people um, are crafted, they're attention grabbing, they're relevant, and they're emotive. So those are the four things, the four um, bits of advice that I would give in terms of a framework of how to address this kind of issue that we spoke about at the start. So, any thoughts on that, by the way? Let me know. Um, I'm just going to give you an example here, a couple of examples. Now, these aren't. I'm going to be a bit hypocritical here because these aren't the most heavily well crafted examples that I could think of, but they're just illustrative of the point here. So, imagine that you wanted, like I do, to engage your organization about taking a more scientific approach to preventing slip accidents, injuries, and insurance claims. And think about the fact that you need to be speaking to, on the one hand, the board, and on the other hand, to the shop floor, and in whatever kind of guise that might be in your business, the people doing the work. So if we're speaking to the board, we might have some kind of image of somebody in a suit and tie. We might have uh, a title like flabbergasted question mark with a sort of fancy long word that maybe somebody on the shop floor wouldn't really understand, but the board maybe would, and it's going to attract some attention because it's not a very common word. We might then say, using this example, did you know slip risk currently costs 24% of your business insurance premium, irrespective of how well you're doing it? And that's true, by the way, because the insurance companies cost their premiums based on industry averages and geography and headcount and all this other stuff, and allocate about 24% of a premium is down to slip risk. But that's quite shocking to a board member because they're going to think, well, hold on a sec. What's 24% of my insurance premium? I care about the insurance premium because that costs me money. Irrespective of how well we're doing it, what does that mean? What can we do about this? I don't like the sound of that. Let's try and solve that. So that would potentially resonate with somebody on the board. If you put that message and you stuck that on a poster on the wall of your staff canteen, nobody's going to give two hoots about it, right? Because it's not relevant to them. It is relevant to them in the perspective of, obviously if it's costing the business, but it's not directly relevant to them. So if you were thinking about something going to the shop floor, you might say much, much crisper, clearer language, shorter sentences. Slips are serious, but you can stop them. Clean up after your spillages. Don't let this happen to your colleague and friend. And then there's a video here. I'll play this video. Hopefully it works. I won't have the sound on. This is a video that the HSE did where you've got somebody working, three people working in a kitchen. They're chatting away. They're obviously friendly, chopping up some vegetables and stuff. This guy's pouring some oil, and he slips slightly and he drops some oil on the floor. He looks at it and thinks, "Right, I better go and tidy that up." And then the chef says, "Oh, can you do this?" So he moves away, doesn't tidy it up, goes to do whatever job he's doing. His colleague, the lady, turns, steps in the oil, and smashes her head against the side of the uh, kitchen cabinetry or whatever it might be. And there's some good graphics, and her head sort of computer animation shatters. And the tagline that the HC used was "Shattered Lives." Now, so that's very emotive, right? And you could use that video and get the attention of somebody on the board, but I think, just this exercise is about comparing the two. That's more likely to work to your shop floor colleagues than the other one is, if you know what I mean. The one talking about business insurance premiums. So what I'd like to do is get some interactivity going. We've got a table here, and we've got what's the risk, who's the audience, what are the challenges for that audience, what are the goals for that audience, what's in it for the person in that audience personally, how would we communicate to that audience, and therefore, given all of that, what sort of message do we think we could put across to that audience? And I thought we could do two sets of this as a comparison, and we'll do it as a team. So really looking for people to shout out some thoughts here. The first one would be, right, manual handling risk towards your shop floor or operations staff. Just think of, let's say we're in a construction business or a factory or something like that. And then let's do a factory, shall we? Let's do a factory. So the first risk we're going to think about is manual handling risk in the factory to the people that are doing the operations work. And then the second risk we're going to think about in that exact same manufacturing business is a fire risk. And we want to be talking about that to the board. So looking for some brave volunteers, and I'm gonna type out some of this as we go. What do we think the challenges of the shop floor operations people are in this factory that might be relevant to us when we're thinking about how we should craft a message to them about manual handling? Ronnie.
I think in terms of challenges, within that shop floor factory, we could have, moving forklifts and poor, ground conditions. Basically, not every factory floor is going to have an anti-slip coating or a
Yep.
designated walkway. So when they are manual handling, can they safely get to the area they want to go with said load? Is it
Yep.
just across from their station, or is it, far and wide through walkways, crossing over interface with moving machinery or moving plant?
Yep. What about more from a personal level? So thinking about, if you imagined yourself as one of these people doing this job, and think about, on the one hand, your challenges and on the other hand, your goals, what would you think would be, what are the challenges about your job effectively?
Have you got adequate time to do it
Yep.
within your surroundings?
Time, yep. Pressure.
Pressure, yeah, absolutely.
Pressure. So, for example, safety versus production.
Yeah.
If anyone else has got ideas, I think let's just unmute and shout them out, and we'll just try and get them down. Oh, where's my mouse gone? What about any ideas about their goals? So this doesn't need to be sort of highfalutin stuff. By this I mean, What are they trying to achieve on a daily basis? Gareth, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, you've volume of work is the challenge, and you want the guys to, their goal is to do it as quick as possible or as
Yeah,
easy as possible. And easy doesn't necessarily mean the safest way.
yeah. So their goals would be get to work, do my job, and get home. In a sense,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, what do they? What else do they care about? They care about. Well, let's that'll be in here. What's in it for them personally? I mean, I think everybody would say health. Um, People would say enjoyment of work, money, obviously, family, time, e.g., holidays. Any other thoughts on this group of people? What are they struggling with? What are they trying to get to?
I think one of the big factors is that they don't want to appear out when the other guy, if someone else can do the job, they don't want to be the one who's saying, "No, I need help to do this." That
Yep. So there's a pressure to do the job and not raise issues. Is that kind of what you mean? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah.
On
You know about this, Mike, because you're working in this kind of environment, aren't you? This factory world. Go on, Ronnie.
on the goals, there could be a sort of a time bar on productivity. They've got X amount to get out in the day, so their goal could be let's say 12 pallets loaded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that could be linked into what's in it for them being, if you do hit your target, go over and above, you may be given a bonus. So there's
Yeah.
a pressure there again.
Or maybe time off in lieu or something like that
Yeah.
for good/fast work.
Yeah.
I did this workshop, or a version of this safety roundtable today. I did as a workshop for a PLC recently, and it obviously for them it was kind of easier in that we were talking about their specific business, and so whereas here we're speaking slightly in the abstract, but they were thinking, right, what do my colleagues really care about when I go around and speak to them? So okay, so we've got some good ideas there. So if we then think about, right, we want to get a message to those people about manual handling. Um, what's the best method, or some of the methods that we could use to? Oh, I've forgotten to look into the chat, haven't I? What would be some of the methods to use um, to get that message across? Job security is a challenge that Rich has mentioned. Yeah,
I go back to interactive on-site training, and rather than just give them a poster, show them exactly how to lift and take from point A to point B.
yeah. So we wouldn't. I think for these people, we wouldn't be doing a 20-page
Yeah,
text-heavy document, would we? For example.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in relation upon, sorry, what Ronnie
Ronnie.
had said there about the interactive sessions, and I did this in a former life where we brought on a trainer. We did about 15 minutes of classroom work and then spent the next 2 hours on the shop floor going through the manual handling issues we had and looking at ways to, say circumvent them, but cure them, stop them from becoming a real issue around body position and how you actually interacted with that, and then changing procedures and ways of working to mirror what had been done on the shop floor in those sessions in real time.
Yeah.
And that, to be honest, really, really resonated with guys, having that one-to-one and having that clear demonstration of commitment that you can actually improve things by, one, not having to spend thousands of pounds per se on changing equipment, but just from actually how you interact with the plant and equipment itself.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. great ideas there. So yeah, so we're talking a lot here about interaction, talking to them, being there, etc. Obviously, that's great if we can do that. Sometimes it might not be possible for us to do that. So we might have. I would suggest that maybe like a short video might be a better way of engaging with that kind of audience than um, some kind of checklist or policy document or something like that. So a visual way of doing it. I love the idea about something interactive. You could even have something interactive digitally, potentially.
Something like a QR code on a poster that goes in the canteen that you can simply scan during
Yeah,
break
yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. Because everybody's got, years and years ago, that sort of thing would just not be difficult, but would not be easy. Whereas now, everyone's,
Readily available.
everyone's got a smartphone, so everybody can get online and do something. Not everyone, like down to the last, not the 100th percentile, but the vast majority of people. There's a challenge here from Gareth. That's what we've always done. Okay, so we thought here about addressing or getting a message across about the risk of manual handling towards these shop floor operations people in this manufacturing business. We've spoken about some of their challenges. We've thought about some of their goals. We've considered what's in it for them personally. We've decided that something interactive is probably the best way of doing it, and ideally something we can deliver face to face. So, with all of that said, what sorts of messages could we be putting out to these people that is going to achieve that care objective? It's going to be crafted, albeit we're not going to spend time iterating the exact wording here, but it's going to be crafted. It's going to be attention grabbing. It's going to be relevant, and it's going to be emotive. Any thoughts on what we could say or do to try and get this piece across about manual
Uh,
handling risks?
yeah, hello. So I can't get my hand
Hi,
raised
CJ.
emoji to
That's all right.
turn up here. For me, and I think I just put it in the chat, that it's always been to me important that get across to people that you're more important than the job. Don't take risks and shortcuts or rush to get the job done because it's not worth it. It's a job, you know. Jobs are important, but
Yeah,
do it properly. Take the time. I think that's for me one of the most important things I've managed to get across to people.
yeah, yeah. I like that, and that's something that you know is relevant because we're speaking to them. Um, we could make it attention grabbing by potentially bringing out a story or an anecdote or an image of somebody or who'd suffered from a manual handling incident of some kind. We could make it emotive in the same way. Gareth.
Yeah, when we've had incidents in the past, we would do like during a shift handover meeting, talk to the guys. So if Christian's had an accident, manual handling, we're talking about it. And the message at the end is, don't be like Christian, be like Ronnie.
Yeah,
And there's sort of a bit of a laugh about it because, we use Ronnie to come and demonstrate what we do. But then, in 2 weeks' time, you say, hey guys, don't be like Christian, be like Ronnie, and just reinforces it.
yeah,
So it's that someone had in the chat, this is a bin, not a bin.
yeah,
But it's personal to them.
yeah,
It's not some random sign company on Google that we found does a poster for us. This is specific to what they know.
yeah,
And it tugs on the heartstrings because
yeah,
yeah, we all know Christian, we work with him.
yeah, yeah,
We know Ronnie.
yeah. No, I think that's a really good idea. Especially if you've got an example, um, or and it could be, then you could say, right, you've got this example. It might not be that the person was seriously injured, but it could be something like um, Christian hurt his back doing incorrect manual handling, and he didn't get to go on holiday, or he couldn't play cricket, or he couldn't have his daughter's. It was his daughter's wedding, and he couldn't do his first dance with. They couldn't do the father-daughter dance. There's all sorts of examples that we can. Yeah, Gareth, you're right. Yeah, that assumes Ronnie was also able to demonstrate lifting correctly, of course. Yeah, but no, I think the point about bringing it to life within the organisation is a really good one. A really good one. So
Hi, Christian.
Yeah, go on, Mike.
I really liked what CJ Brown said. I thought that was great. And I think even more so, if that can be said by a supervisor who's got responsibility for operations or production, yeah, that he's actually saying that your health is more important to me than production. If it comes from that sort of person who's always pushing for the numbers, then it really has a very, very big effect. And the other thing I've really had really good success is if someone does actually hurt themselves, to coach them to do a toolbox talk to their mates after they've done it around what had happened and what they felt. And coming from someone who's actually hurt themselves, that they know, that usually has a very positive effect as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Get them to share the story themselves. Like it. Let's park that for now then, the top section. And let's think about I'm going to just make this text ever so slightly smaller. Let's think about it's the same business, but we're now trying to speak to the board, and we're trying to speak to them about the risk of fire. So if we think about the board members, what are their challenges? What are their goals? What's in it for them personally, keeping the business free and safe of fire risk? What effect could it have on them if it went wrong?
Literally, the big one that I always play is, you need to keep your customers supplied. And if you have a fire, you might not be able to do that.
Yep. No business. Fire equals no business equals no sales equals no profit, etc. Yep. Yep. They're gonna be worried about. Gareth said the business continuity. They're going to be worried about the cost of rebuilding. They're going to be thinking, are we adequately insured? Lots and lots of businesses are underinsured, not necessarily for fire, but I know lots of businesses are underinsured for fire. But yeah, people should be worried about being underinsured because often they are. Yeah, insurance premiums. If you're on the board, your remuneration is probably linked in some way to profitability. So if something costs the business, is a cost to you personally in some way, shape, or form. If reputation is something that they'd be concerned about. Thanks, Jason. Loss of staff, Adrian. Yep. Sustainability. Yep. Things that they're worried about. Essentially, the board. If you're a director of a business, you obviously have certain obligations around like health and safety and stuff. But fundamentally, your legal obligation, got something in my eye, sorry, is to deliver shareholder value. So, and that means making a profit. So that's likely to come pretty much at the top of any board members list is what's this going to do to the profitability, or what effect will this decision have on the profitability of the organisation? Richard, yeah, you've got a hand up.
One of the things they're going to be interested in is avoiding being in court.
Yep.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
doesn't do any company any good if a director ends up in court, and especially if they end up being prosecuted themselves because of knowledge and connivance.
Yeah. So yeah, they want to stay out of court themselves personally, but also they want the organisation to stay out of court as well. They're going to care about staff, turnover, training, retention, happiness, because that's all a barometer of production and profitability, success. If we wanted to engage with these people, how are we going to do that? We're probably not going to be doing a toolbox talk. How might we best?
I think at that level of the organisation, when you're talking to the board, you really need to lay out to them exactly what it means to them personally. Certainly at director level,
Yeah.
where, going back to the comment previously, being found to be acting with consent and connivance. So you're kind of looking down the Barleycorn of corporate manslaughter type area there.
Yeah.
That could mean obviously loss of directorship for them, imprisonment at worst, personal fine,
Mhm.
And I think kind of just level on that to that group of what currently is the going rate, as it were,
Yeah.
for that type of fine. And there isn't a great deal of data behind it, but reputationally, seeing that in the papers where it would have to appear is exceedingly damaging for any organisation. It's certainly not somewhere anybody in the director level wants to be,
Yeah.
or certainly take their business in that arena either.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. So layout, I suppose that might be within the message. So sort of laying out, what is the going rate, as you say, if this goes wrong.
Yeah, what does this actually mean for me as an individual?
Yeah.
And I suppose at that level, any organisation, it's how are you deemed by your peer group,
Yeah. Yeah. To your own personal reputation. We should also think here about the positives of this as well, because it's quite easy, particularly when we're thinking about going up to the board, we sort of we can fall into this trap of negativity. But by that I mean all they care about is cost, and it's keeping them out of prison and saving money and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, they care about that, but we should be almost flipping or trying to flip it as well and saying, right, if we invest in getting this right, the positive benefits are going to be X, Y, and Z as well. So not just focusing on the negative side, because I think that's where sometimes we kind of get caught in the kind of health and safety police trap.
I do think it's about obviously leveling that cost benefit analysis of this.
Yeah.
I think just to kind of follow on from your point there, what do you have to spend, but then what do you gain by that spend? That could be anything from reduced insurance costs.
Yeah.
You could be seen as a best-in-class operation. You may, with your insurers, become what's classed as a highly protected risk,
Yep.
which then kind of has other connotations for your organisation as you're actually best in class. You're seen as a site of good practice, which leads to other opportunities maybe coming your way because of that.
Yeah. So exactly, when commercial benefits as well come out of that.
Yeah,
So in
indeed.
terms of the method of communication, some kind of cost benefit analysis. We're going to have to here, I believe, think about data in terms of how we're communicating this message. They're going to need some kind of data because numbers is the language of business. Whereas I think when we're talking to the shop floor colleagues in the factory, giving them the statistical analysis of how likely something is to happen is just going to bore them to tears in most cases. But for the board, we're going to need to bring out that data and try and give them something on which they can base the decision. But yeah, certainly consider the positive side of risk management too. So we've spent, 20 minutes or something working on this. This isn't the finished article by any means, but I suppose the point that this illustrates, I think, is that we have to communicate, even though we're speaking about safety, we have to communicate about safety to different audiences in a very different way. And we have to consider who the audience is, what are their goals, what are their aspirations, what are their challenges, what's in it for them personally regarding safety and getting this right or wrong. What's the best way to actually communicate to them? And then obviously, what is that message? And that's when, if we can do that sort of homework bit, we can then come up with a message per the care framework that is crafted, attention grabbing, relevant, and emotive. So hopefully that's been useful, guys. Happy to take any additional thoughts, or we can sort of finish up. We're almost up for time anyway, but we've got a few more minutes. If anybody else wanted to share any other thoughts about this, then let me know, either by raising your hand or coming in on the chat. But hopefully you can go away, take that framework away, think about that table and how we go about putting these messages together, and maybe just spend a bit of time working through that with your colleagues internally. As I say, I've done this as a workshop for businesses before. If you want me to come into your company and do a workshop on this and facilitate it, reach out to me. Very happy to do that as well. But I found it a really good way of just getting a bit more clarity around messaging, and really it's all about, as the title of the session says, achieving safety success by winning hearts and minds. So we all care about safety, but to achieve that safety, we've got to win hearts and minds. Richard.
And when it comes to presenting to the boards, one of the things that people could try looking at is to see if there's a particular director who's probably really receptive, and then putting the idea across that they actually do that kind of presentation within their group, so that it's done at an equivalent peer level, almost to try and persuade them themselves to have the epiphany moment that we all know the board should be having to take health and safety forward in the 21st century.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I always think that a good strategy for you as a safety or risk professional is to understand what's in it for them, for the people that are kind of heads of department within the different functions of the business. So really get to know them and understand, what are they trying to achieve? What are their goals and aspirations within their bit of the business? And then see if you can figure out, firstly, how you can help them to achieve that. But secondly, how in so doing, they can help you to achieve the safety goals that you've got as well, if that makes sense, because the two should be linked. If you're running a good business, you should be safe. If you're safe, you should be running a good business. And then taking Richard's point there, if you can get the sort of champion, as it were, to be the person that's putting this message across rather than you. And somebody else mentioned before about, if somebody's had an accident, get them to tell the story, or a message could come across better if it comes from the finance person saying safety is more important than production rather than you as a health and safety professional. So anything we can do to engage and get other stakeholders in the business organization to be getting these messages across, yeah, absolutely, 100% agree, is definitely a good thing. Good stuff. Well, thank you everybody for joining this session. Hope you found it useful. Go away and have a go at creating some messages on how to get people to care about safety, and let me know how you get on. See you again on the next one in a couple of weeks.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit follow and do share on social media. Does anyone you know spring to mind as a great guest, even yourself? If so, please contact us on podcast@slipsafety.co.uk. See you next week for another episode.